Welcome to the heart and mind of business. Are you starting a business and don't want to break the bank? Then join us for today's discussion because that is what Clara's going to be sharing her tools and tips on. You won't want to miss this. It's easy to think that starting a new business can be an expensive thing, that you have to put your hands deeply into your pockets to get it going. Well, we're going to bust that myth today. Well, at least Clara's going to bust that myth today because we don't have to really dig deep. It depends what kind of business we're doing. Isn't that right, Clara?
Yes, absolutely true. So let's talk about starting a business without breaking the bank. Now, of course, it's totally going to matter on what kind of business you're starting. Right? For instance, if you're going to start a brick and mortar business, you want to open a shop, a local shop. That's going to be way more expensive, of course, because there are expenses that you don't have if you're doing like a service-based business or you're even a home-based business. So for instance, a number of years ago, I started a coffee shop because I'd always wanted to. I did it with my daughter, my youngest, and it was wonderful fun. We had a great time. I did my coaching in the coffee shop. It was wonderful. So it was called Perks Coffee House. And it was great fun. It was expensive to start because first we had to pay for a place, right? Pay for a building, had to renovate it so that it was an adorable coffee shop, which it turned out to be. And then we had to buy all the equipment and there was all the training. And whilst I was a coffee snob already, I didn't know how to make awesome espresso and fancy foo-foo drinks and all those things. So I had to go learn. So we did a microloan or a small business loan from the local Economic Development Council, which was wonderful. It's a small business startup or small business support system in our local community. And many places have one of those. So we did a microloan from them, and that made it possible to not dig deep into our own pockets. And because it was done through the Economic Development Council, our interest rate was amazing. So that's one option, to have a look around at what funding is available for you through the Small Business Association or other entities that their intent and aim is to help that new entrepreneur or that budding business. Now, that is the only business in all of my life since I was 18 years old. We've had multiple businesses. That's the only one I ever got funding for. And only because of that upfront expense for startup. All of our other businesses over the years, we have self-funded or bootstrapped. Some people call it bootstrapping. So you did as well, didn't you, Debbie? You kind of bootstrapped your startup.
I did. And I didn't do an automatic leap into my new business. I know some people take the leap. I was corporate before. I did both. I negotiated my hours down. So I was doing 3 days, but then compressing them into 2.5. So I had 2.5 that I was doing employed, and then 2.5 I was doing for me. And I did that for a while, and I really wanted just to test how I felt running that business, whether sometimes what's in your mind, you think, I'm really going to like that. And then when you get to do it, you think, I don't know whether I'm going to like that or not. So, you know, you've got to test it for myself, and I've got to test it to see whether people want to work with me, whether it's something I could sell. So, you know, mine was service-based. Apart from renting a consultation room somewhere when I wanted to, I could just book an hour, you know, when I needed it. Or I was doing it online. So really my overheads were pretty low.
Which is wonderful and a great way for a lot of people to start a business. You not only did the side hustle thing, right, but you worked out of a home office, and made it even more friendly, right? Pocket friendly.
Yeah.
So that's the service-based and the small business like that. That's a super easy bootstrapping or self-funding option.
Yeah.
If you're going to start a business. So something to think about when you're thinking about your new business entity, like, okay, how am I going to cover my expenses? Is this something that I can self-fund or bootstrap? you may look at your business model that you're developing and go, if I made this tweak or this adjustment, I could maybe do a self-funded. The beautiful thing about self-funding is that you don't have debt that you have to worry about, right? There's enough expenses in business, right? If you can avoid that startup debt, that's a beautiful thing. Now, if you cannot and you need the funding, there are lots of places where you can go get traditional funding. Banks, some banks are business friendly and they'll fund a small business startup. Just keep in mind that if you're going to get funding from anywhere other than your own pocket, which could mean things like pulling from a retirement fund or one of those things that you have some money tucked away somewhere else, if you're willing to risk that savings or that towards an investment in yourself, that's a great option. But there are other places that you can go to get that funding, like the Economic Development Council or the Small Business Administration here in the States. Do you guys have one over there that you can go to for small business funding?
Probably. Do you know, it's not something I ever really looked into because I knew I didn't need it.
Right.
But I guess the thing that sprang to my mind was that if you're not willing to put some of the money up front yourself into whatever you start off with, how is anybody else going to have that trust and faith to put their money up front as well? Because I know you can get angel investors, you could get family to invest into something. But if you're not willing to put a bit of skin in the game as well, then how can you expect anybody else to take that risk? So I think there's an element of, putting yourself out there a little bit and and showing that actually, do you know what, I'm invested in this, and I'm invested because I'm willing to invest not only all my time, but I'm willing to invest as much money as I can. And in doing that, I'll prove to you that, I'm worth investing in. If so, I think there's getting a balance, but I don't know. I mean, we have economic development within councils. I don't know whether they would be able to pinpoint you to particular funding streams. I mean, there are sites. It depends what the business structure, because if they're things like charities, there's often funding for things like charities and those sorts of organizations that are around. Maybe not so much for a small business if it's a for profit, but there will be stuff around, and sometimes it might be just crowdfunding or finding another way where you can get a lot of people to invest a very small amount of money into you with a promise of, I don't know, a small return or something. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't just have to be one person or a bank putting in. There are other options too.
Especially if you're doing something with intellectual property, right? If you've created some intellectual property, or the what you're selling is in your brain, right? You're selling coaching services, that's your degree field, right? This is or at least one of them, right? But this is where all this wonderful education is in this, spirituality and this coaching thing. That's all stuff you've learned. You're going to help them from inside your head, right?
Yeah.
So there's lots of little things that you could do when you're starting up to bring in resources on like small groups and things like that. So there's just so much you can do with intellectual property and service-based businesses. They are usually not expensive to start up. Just be aware that when you're starting your business, everything costs. Everything. Pens, paper, your computer, all of the pieces, it's all going to cost. Those things are going to cost you something. So just take into account those things as you draw out your business startup map. If you're going to get traditional funding, you're absolutely going to need a business plan. Even if it's a abbreviated or small business plan. The more money you're asking for, the better your business plan should be, right? Locally, we have a place called SCORE, which is for small businesses, and they have free assistance for that kind of thing. So it's made up of people who have retired from specific fields, and then they donate their time to other small businesses. They're probably retired at this point, or partial semi-retired, and then they for free help. They teach classes, so you can hire a SCORE mentor for free for your business for whatever you need. In the US, that's the way it works anyway. So there's lots of help out there that doesn't have to come out of your pocket as money. It can be sweat equity as well. So it doesn't have to break the bank to start a business.
And there's also bearing in mind that if you're working at home, there are some allowances that you can claim, certainly here for home working, for using an office in your house, that, you know, that's obviously goes against your, you know, your expenditure as such, so that you don't have to pay tax on that element. So, you know, whatever you can offset, you know, all your expenses that are appropriate, obviously, are a good thing, because you want to make sure that you're claiming the allowances and things that you can.
Absolutely. All of the expenses that, as a business owner, all the expenses that would have been covered previously by an employer, like all of your supplies, your workspace, all of those things that they covered for you, you are now covering for yourself. And so you get to write them off. Those are all expenses. So you may think, ooh, look at all this money I'm making. Well, let's see what that money looks like when you've paid all of your expenses, things that you've never had to pay before, perhaps. So not to discourage anyone, I'm just saying that it's a different mindset when you start thinking about money as a business owner versus being an employee. So don't be afraid to take the plunge, just be smart about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And reach out. I mean, seems a great scheme over in the States. The States, would you call it SCORE, I think?
SCORE is what we call it, yeah.
And I don't know whether there's a similar one in the UK or wherever in the world, but I think something like that is a fantastic opportunity if you can find. And to be honest, I've always found that when you ask somebody, most people are willing to share their expertise. You know, it feels good. It doesn't mean to say you take advantage of that, but they're willing to share a little bit of their time and their expertise just to help out. And I think, so there's always help around, just have to reach out and ask for it. So thank you for sharing that stuff. And yeah, it's a big thing when you start thinking about money and how you fund what you want to do, but there are ways and means, and there are people out there that you can get stuff from for free. Always a good price. I like that price.
Yes, or barter. I
Or
love to barter too.
trading. Yeah, I've done that. I've done that too. Yes.
Good stuff.
So thank you for joining us today, and I hope you take some information away that helps you to financially support your adventure, because you don't want to give up on your adventure just because of money. There is always a way through. It's just finding that piece. So trust yourself, trust life, trust the information you need to know will come to you, and have fun exploring it. Have an eye of, I wonder what would happen if I explored this way of doing something. So we'll see you again next time, and have a really good week.
Take care. Don't forget to like and share.
Yes.
Hit the notifications before you go. We will see you next week. Same time, same place, on the Heart and Mind of Business.